Have you ever noticed that the language we use around aging is almost always a language of loss? We speak of declining years, of slowing down, of things being taken from us. It is a quiet narrative of subtraction, one that begins to feel inevitable after a certain age. But here is a question worth considering. What if some of what we experience is aging? The slower recovery, the creeping mental fog, the gradual loss of strength, is not the relentless march of time at all. What if it is something far more subtle and far more within our influence? Researchers studying long-lived populations have observed a pattern that challenges the conventional story. They have noticed that the body often does not simply wear out. Instead, it adapts to the conditions we create for it. And sometimes, without realizing it, we create conditions that slowly, silently, undermine the very vitality we wish to preserve. The mistake is not in growing older. The mistake is in misunderstanding what growing older actually requires. What if the key to independence in later years is not found in fighting a battle against time, but in understanding something far simpler, something hiding in plain sight? You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The art of growing older, a calm exploration of what the research teaches us about longevity. There is a question that has quietly occupied the minds of philosophers, poets, and physicians for thousands of years. It is not a question about how to avoid aging altogether, because aging is not a problem to be solved. It is a natural process, as inevitable as the turning of the seasons. The question is rather this: given that we will all grow older, what determines whether those later years are marked by vitality and engagement, or by frailty and decline? In the modern world, this question has taken on new urgency. For the first time in human history, large populations are living well into their 8th, 9th, and even 10th decades. This is a remarkable achievement, a testament to improvements in sanitation, nutrition, and medical care. Yet many observers have noted an uncomfortable paradox. In the wealthiest nations, where access to health care is greater than ever before, the quality of life in later years does not always match the quantity of years lived. There is a growing recognition that living longer and living well are not automatically the same thing. This observation has prompted researchers across many disciplines to look more carefully at the factors that distinguish those who age with grace and resilience from those who do not. What emerges from this body of work is not a single magic bullet, not a pill or a potion that can guarantee a long and healthy life. Instead, what emerges is a pattern, a collection of principles that appear again and again in communities where people live not only long lives, but lives marked by vitality well into old age. These principles are not secrets. They are not hidden knowledge. They are simply observations about how human beings function best, gathered from studies of traditional cultures, from longitudinal research on aging populations, and from the emerging science of how our bodies change over time. What follows is an exploration of those principles, gathered into a coherent philosophy of growing older. It is not a prescription. It is not a set of commandments. It is simply an invitation to consider what the evidence suggests about the art of aging well. The body is a system. Understanding the terrain, before considering specific strategies for maintaining health in later years. It is helpful to understand a fundamental truth about how the human body operates. The body is not a machine with replaceable parts that eventually wear out according to a fixed schedule. It is more accurately understood as a living system, a dynamic and responsive organism that is constantly adapting to its environment, repairing damage, and regulating its internal processes. This system's view of the body has important implications. It means that what happens in one part of the body affects every other part. It means that the body's capacity for self-repair is remarkable, but that this capacity depends on having the right raw materials and the right conditions. And it means that the signals we send to our bodies through our daily choices, what we eat, how we move, how we respond to stress, are not minor inputs. They are instructions that shape how our bodies function at the most fundamental level. Consider for a moment the concept of inflammation. In the public conversation about health, inflammation has become something of a villain, a destructive force that must be suppressed at all costs. But this oversimplification misses an essential nuance. Inflammation is actually one of the body's most important defense mechanisms. When you cut your skin, the redness and swelling that appear are signs that your immune system has mobilized to fight infection and begin the repair process. This is acute inflammation, and it is essential for survival. The problem arises when this same defensive response becomes chronic. When the body remains in a state of low-grade alert, even in the absence of any immediate threat. This chronic inflammation has been linked to a wide range of conditions that become more common with age, from changes in the cardiovascular system to shifts in cognitive function. Understanding this distinction between acute and chronic inflammation helps explain why some approaches to health focus not on suppressing the body's responses, but on removing the triggers that keep the body in a perpetual state of alarm. Another fundamental concept is the idea of metabolic health. At its simplest, metabolism refers to the complex chemical processes by which the body converts food into energy and builds and repairs its tissues. When these processes are functioning smoothly, the body is able to efficiently manage blood sugar, store and release energy as needed, and maintain stable energy levels throughout the day. When metabolic processes become disrupted, a cascade of effects can follow, affecting everything from energy levels to cardiovascular function to cognitive clarity. The system's view of the body also helps explain why nutrient status matters so much for overall function. Every cell in the body requires a steady supply of vitamins, minerals, and other compounds to perform its tasks. These nutrients are not optional extras. They are the raw materials without which the body's repair systems cannot operate. When certain nutrients are in short supply, the body must prioritize, directing available resources to the most essential functions and leaving other systems to operate suboptimally. Over time, these subtle deficiencies can accumulate, contributing to the gradual decline that is often mistaken for inevitable aging. What makes this understanding useful is that it points toward a different approach to maintaining health. Rather than waiting for specific problems to arise and then searching for something to fix them, a systems approach emphasizes creating the conditions in which the body can do what it is designed to do: maintain balance, repair damage, and adapt to changing circumstances. This is not about treating disease. It is about supporting the terrain in which health can flourish. The movement impulse. Why bodies need to stay in motion. Among the most consistent findings in research on healthy aging is the importance of regular physical activity. This is not a surprising observation, but its implications are often underappreciated. The human body was designed for movement. Every system in the body, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, nervous, metabolic, functions better when it is regularly challenged by physical activity. What is particularly interesting is the relationship between muscle mass and longevity. Researchers have observed that the preservation of muscle mass as people age is one of the strongest predictors of continued independence and vitality. Muscle is not just for moving things. It is a metabolically active tissue that plays a central role in regulating blood sugar, maintaining balance, and supporting overall metabolic health. When muscle mass declines, a condition known as sarcopenia, the effects ripple throughout the entire system. The good news is that the body remains responsive to movement stimuli at any age. Studies of older adults who begin structured exercise programs show improvements in strength, balance, and cardiovascular function that are meaningful and measurable. The body's capacity to adapt to physical demands does not disappear with age. It simply requires consistent engagement. Different types of movement appear to support different aspects of healthy aging. Activities that challenge the cardiovascular system, such as walking at a brisk pace, swimming, or cycling, help maintain the efficiency of the heart and lungs and support healthy blood pressure. Activities that challenge muscles against resistance, whether through lifting weights, using resistance bands, or practicing bodyweight exercises like squats and push-ups, help preserve muscle mass and bone density. Activities that challenge balance, such as Tai Chi or simple standing exercises, help reduce the risk of falls, which are a major source of injury and decline in later years. Perhaps most importantly, movement appears to have profound effects on the brain. Research has shown that regular physical activity is associated with better cognitive function and a lower risk of cognitive decline. The mechanisms here are multiple. Movement increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients. It stimulates the release of compounds that support the growth and survival of brain cells. And it appears to help maintain the connections between brain cells that are essential for memory and thinking. What is striking about this research is that the benefits of movement are not limited to vigorous exercise. Studies of traditional populations where people remain active into old age often find that their activity is not structured exercise in the modern sense. It is simply the accumulated movement of daily life, walking to market, tending gardens, doing household tasks, moving throughout the day rather than sitting for long periods. This suggests that the key variable is not the intensity of exercise, but the absence of prolonged inactivity. For those considering how to incorporate more movement into daily life, the evidence suggests that variety is valuable. A week that includes some cardiovascular activity, some resistance activity, and some balance activity provides more comprehensive support for healthy aging than any single type of movement alone. The goal is not athletic performance. The goal is simply to send the body a consistent signal that movement is required, that muscles need to be maintained, that balance needs to be practiced, that the cardiovascular system needs to be challenged. The nutrition paradox, abundance and deficiency. There is a curious paradox in modern nutrition. In wealthy nations, where food is more abundant and varied than at any point in human history, nutrient deficiencies remain surprisingly common. This is not the deficiency of starvation, the profound lack of calories that has plagued humanity for most of its existence. It is a more subtle form of deficiency, a shortage of specific nutrients even in the context of caloric abundance. Researchers have identified several reasons for this paradox. One is the shift toward foods that have been processed in ways that remove naturally occurring nutrients. The refining of grains, for example, removes the germ and bran where many vitamins and minerals are concentrated, leaving primarily starch. The result is a product that provides energy but lacks the accompanying nutrients that the body needs to process that energy effectively. Another factor is the nutrient cost of modern living. The body requires certain nutrients in greater amounts when it is under stress, when it is fighting off infections, or when it is processing various substances that enter the body. This means that the baseline requirement for nutrients is not fixed. It varies depending on what the body is being asked to handle. Perhaps most relevant to the discussion of aging is the observation that many commonly used medications have effects on nutrient status. This is not a criticism of medication. It is simply a physiological reality. When a substance enters the body must process it, utilize it, and eventually eliminate it. These processes often require specific nutrients. If those nutrients are not adequately supplied, the body must draw from its reserves, potentially leading to gradual depletion over time. The classes of medications that have been most studied in this context include those used to manage cardiovascular conditions, those that affect stomach acid, those that influence mood and mental function, and those that alter hormonal patterns. In each case, researchers have documented changes in the levels of various nutrients in people taking these medications over extended periods. This observation has led some researchers to suggest a more nuanced approach to medication management, one that considers not only the intended effects of a drug, but also its potential impact on nutrient status. This is not about rejecting medication when it is truly needed. It is about recognizing that medication is one factor in a complex system, and that supporting the body's nutrient reserves may be an important part of maintaining overall health when medication is necessary. What nutrients appear most frequently in this research? Several patterns emerge. The family of B vitamins, including folate, B6, and B12, appears repeatedly in studies of nutrient depletion. These vitamins are essential for energy production, for the proper functioning of the nervous system, and for a process called methylation that affects everything from DNA maintenance to mood regulation. Magnesium is another nutrient that appears frequently, involved in hundreds of enzymatic reactions throughout the body. Zinc, critical for immune function and tissue repair, is also commonly mentioned. And coenzyme Q10, a compound that cells need to produce energy, appears in studies of certain cardiovascular medications. The practical implication of this research is not that people should avoid medications when they are necessary. It is that maintaining awareness of nutrient status may be a valuable part of health management, particularly for those taking medications over long periods. This might mean paying attention to dietary sources of key nutrients, ensuring that the diet provides adequate amounts of the foods that supply them. It might mean, in consultation with knowledgeable healthcare providers, considering whether targeted nutrient support is appropriate. The calcium paradox and bone health. Among the most common concerns as people age is the health of their bones. This is understandable. The gradual loss of bone density that can occur with aging increases the risk of fractures, which in turn can lead to loss of mobility and independence. For this reason, calcium has received enormous attention in discussions of healthy aging. But the story of bone health is more complex than simply getting enough calcium. Researchers have observed that calcium does not work in isolation. It requires a cast of supporting nutrients to be properly utilized by the body. Vitamin D, for example, is essential for calcium absorption. Without adequate vitamin D, the body cannot efficiently absorb calcium from the digestive tract, regardless of how much is consumed. Vitamin K also plays a role, helping to direct calcium to the bones where it is needed and away from soft tissues where it might cause problems. Magnesium is another critical player in bone health. A significant portion of the body's magnesium is stored in the bones, where it contributes to bone structure and also helps regulate the activity of cells that build and break down bone tissue. Some researchers have suggested that the ratio of calcium to magnesium in the diet may be as important as the absolute amounts of either mineral. This complexity helps explain why population studies of calcium supplementation have produced mixed results. Simply adding calcium without attention to the other factors that support bone health may not provide the expected benefits. The more integrated approach would be to consider the entire network of nutrients that support bone structure and to ensure that all of them are adequately supplied. Beyond nutrients, bones respond to physical demands. This is a principle known as Wolff's Law, which observes that bone tissue adapts to the loads under which it is placed. When bones are regularly subjected to impact and resistance, they respond by becoming denser and stronger. When they are not challenged, they gradually lose density. This is one reason why weight-bearing activity and resistance training are consistently associated with better bone health in later years. For those considering how to support bone health, the evidence suggests a comprehensive approach. Adequate intake of calcium from food sources, supported by vitamin D from sunlight or diet, along with magnesium and vitamin K from leafy greens and other vegetables, provides the raw materials. Regular weight-bearing and resistance activity provides the stimulus that tells the body to maintain and strengthen bone tissue. And avoiding factors that can undermine bone health, such as smoking and excessive alcohol consumption, removes obstacles to the body's natural bone maintenance processes. The digestive terrain. Absorption and microbial balance. The digestive system occupies a unique position in the body. It is technically part of the external world, a tube that runs through the body and processes the materials we take in from the environment. Yet its health profoundly affects every other system. It is through the digestive tract that nutrients enter the body. It is here that a significant portion of the immune system is based. And it is here that a vast community of microorganisms, collectively known as the microbiome, carries out functions that the human body cannot perform on its own. Research on the microbiome has expanded dramatically in recent decades, revealing the many ways in which these microbial inhabitants influence health. The bacteria in the digestive tract help break down components of food that human enzymes cannot digest, producing beneficial compounds in the process. They synthesize certain vitamins, including some B vitamins and vitamin K. They communicate with the immune system, helping to regulate its responses. And they form a living barrier that helps prevent harmful organisms from gaining a foothold. Given the importance of this microbial community, factors that disrupt it are relevant to discussions of health. Antibiotics, for example, are designed to kill bacteria. They cannot distinguish between harmful bacteria causing an infection and beneficial bacteria that support health. A course of antibiotics can significantly alter the composition of the microbiome, reducing its diversity and potentially allowing less desirable organisms to proliferate. Most people recover from this disruption over time, but repeated courses of antibiotics can have cumulative effects. Other factors that influence the microbiome include diet, stress, and various substances that pass through the digestive tract. Diets rich in diverse plant foods tend to support a more diverse and resilient microbiome, because different bacteria prefer different types of fiber and other plant compounds. Diets low in fiber and high in processed foods tend to support a less diverse community. The health of the digestive tract itself is also relevant. The lining of the digestive tract is a selective barrier, designed to allow nutrients to pass through while keeping larger particles and harmful substances out. When this barrier is compromised, a condition sometimes described as increased intestinal permeability, larger particles may enter the bloodstream, potentially triggering immune responses. Factors that can affect the integrity of this barrier include certain medications, alcohol, stress, and aspects of diet. For those interested in supporting digestive health as part of an approach to healthy aging, several strategies emerge from the research. Consuming a variety of plant foods provides the fiber that beneficial bacteria need to thrive. Fermented foods introduce beneficial microbes directly. Managing stress supports the nervous system's influence on digestive function. And being mindful of factors that can disrupt the microbial community allows for more informed choices when those factors are necessary. The inflammation continuum. Inflammation, as noted earlier, is not inherently harmful. It is an essential defense mechanism. But when inflammation becomes chronic and systemic, it can contribute to a wide range of age-related changes. Understanding what drives chronic inflammation is therefore relevant to discussions of healthy aging. One major driver is metabolic stress. When blood sugar remains elevated for extended periods, it can lead to the formation of compounds that trigger inflammatory responses. This is one reason why stable blood sugar is associated with better health outcomes. The body's ability to manage glucose efficiently, clearing it from the bloodstream and storing it appropriately, reduces this particular source of inflammatory stress. Another driver is body composition, particularly the pattern of fat storage. Fat tissue is not inert. It is metabolically active, producing various signaling molecules, some of which can promote inflammation. This is especially true for fat stored around the abdominal organs, which appears to be more metabolically active than fat stored elsewhere. This observation helps explain why waist circumference is often included alongside weight in assessments of health risk. Dietary factors can also influence inflammatory status. Certain components of food appear to have anti-inflammatory effects. The omega-3 fatty acids found in fish and some plant sources, for example, are incorporated into cell membranes and can influence the production of inflammatory signaling molecules. The polyphenol found in colorful fruits, vegetables, herbs, and spices have been studied for their effects on various inflammatory pathways. Conversely, certain dietary patterns, particularly those high in refined carbohydrates and certain types of fats, are associated with higher levels of inflammatory markers. Physical activity has complex effects on inflammation. During and immediately after exercise, there is actually a temporary increase in inflammatory markers, part of the body's adaptive response to the stress of exercise. But over time, regular physical activity is associated with lower baseline levels of inflammation. The body becomes more efficient at managing inflammatory responses, mounting them when needed and resolving them when the threat has passed. Stress and sleep also play roles in the inflammation story. Chronic psychological stress is associated with higher levels of inflammatory markers, likely through the effects of stress hormones on immune function. Poor sleep, similarly, has been linked to increased inflammation. The restoration that occurs during sleep appears to be important for regulating inflammatory responses. What emerges from this research is a picture of inflammation as a process that is influenced by multiple aspects of daily life. No single factor determines inflammatory status. Rather, it is the accumulation of many small influences: diet, activity, stress, sleep, body composition, that shapes whether the body remains in a balanced state or drifts toward chronic inflammatory activity. The nervous system. Balance between alert and calm. The autonomic nervous system. The part of the nervous system that regulates functions below the level of conscious awareness. Operates along a spectrum. At one end is the sympathetic branch, often associated with the fight or flight response. This is the system that mobilizes the body for action, increasing heart rate, redirecting blood flow to muscles, and releasing stored energy. At the other end is the parasympathetic branch, often associated with rest and digest functions. This system slows heart rate, directs blood flow to digestive organs, and supports recovery and repair. In the modern world, many people spend more time than is optimal in sympathetic dominant states. The demands of daily life, the constant stimulation of technology, the pressures of work and family responsibilities, all of these can keep the sympathetic nervous system engaged even when there is no immediate physical threat. Over time, this chronic activation can have effects throughout the body, contributing to elevated blood pressure, disrupted digestion, impaired sleep, and changes in metabolic function. The ability to shift back toward parasympathetic dominance, to recover from stress and return to a state of calm, appears to be important for long-term health. This is sometimes referred to as resilience, the capacity to respond to challenges and then return to baseline. Research suggests that this capacity can be cultivated through various practices. Breathing patterns have a particularly direct influence on the autonomic nervous system. Slow, Rhythmic breathing, especially with a slightly prolonged exhale, activates the vagus nerve, a major conduit of parasympathetic signals. This is why practices that focus on breath, from simple deep breathing to more structured techniques, are associated with feelings of calm and with measurable changes in heart rate and blood pressure. Physical activity also influences nervous system balance. While intense exercise activates the sympathetic system, which is appropriate during the activity itself, regular exercise is associated with improved parasympathetic tone at rest. The body becomes more efficient at shifting between states, mounting a sympathetic response when needed and then recovering effectively afterward. Social connection is another factor that influences the nervous system. Positive social interactions, particularly those involving physical touch or emotional closeness, are associated with parasympathetic activation. This is one reason why loneliness and social isolation have been linked to a range of health concerns. The nervous system appears to interpret isolation as a threat, maintaining a higher state of alert than when connection is present. For those considering how to support nervous system balance, the evidence suggests paying attention to the rhythm of daily life. Periods of engagement and activity are natural and necessary, but they need to be balanced with periods of recovery and calm. The ability to transition from doing to being, from activity to rest, may be as important as any specific practice. The social body, connection, and longevity. One of the most fascinating findings from research on aging populations is the importance of social connection. Studies that follow large groups of people over many years consistently find that those with stronger social ties tend to live longer and experience better health than those who are more isolated. This effect holds even after accounting for other factors like income, health behaviors, and pre-existing health conditions. The mechanisms behind this observation are likely multiple. Social connection provides emotional support, which can buffer the effects of stress. It provides practical support, someone to call when help is needed. It provides accountability and encouragement for healthy behaviors. And it provides a sense of purpose and meaning, a reason to get up in the morning and engage with the world. The opposite of connection, loneliness and social isolation, has been associated with a range of health concerns. Researchers have documented links between loneliness and changes in immune function, cardiovascular health, cognitive decline, and even sleep quality. Some have suggested that the health effects of chronic loneliness may be comparable to those of smoking or obesity, though such comparisons are necessarily rough. What is particularly interesting about this research is that the quality of relationships matters more than the quantity. Having a few close, meaningful relationships appears to be more protective than having many superficial ones. And the feeling of loneliness, the subjective experience of feeling disconnected, may be as important as objective isolation in predicting health outcomes. This observation has implications for how we think about healthy aging. It suggests that investing time and energy in relationships is not merely a luxury or a matter of personal preference. It is a health behavior, as relevant to long-term well-being as diet or exercise. Maintaining connections with family and friends, participating in community activities, finding ways to contribute to the lives of others. These are not just pleasant activities. They are part of the foundation of healthy aging. For those in later life, when retirement, geographic moves, or the loss of loved ones can disrupt social networks, actively cultivating connection may require intentional effort. This might mean seeking out groups based on shared interests, volunteering for causes that matter, or simply making the effort to reach out to others rather than waiting for them to reach out. The evidence suggests that such efforts are worthwhile, not only for emotional well-being, but for physical health as well. The purpose factor, meaning as medicine, closely related to social connection, is the role of purpose and meaning in healthy aging. Researchers who study exceptionally long-lived populations often note that a sense of purpose, a reason to get up in the morning, appears to be a common characteristic. This is sometimes described as having a reason for being, a sense that one's life has meaning and that one has a role to play in the world. The association between purpose and health has been documented in formal research as well. Studies that measure purpose in life and then follow people over time find that those with a stronger sense of purpose tend to have better health outcomes, including lower rates of cardiovascular events and slower cognitive decline. They also tend to maintain physical function better as they age. The mechanisms here are not fully understood, but several possibilities have been suggested. A sense of purpose may motivate health-promoting behaviors. People who feel their lives have meaning may be more inclined to take care of themselves. Purpose may also buffer the effects of stress, providing a perspective that helps put daily challenges in context. And purpose may influence physiological processes directly, through the effects of positive emotions on the nervous and endocrine systems. What gives life meaning varies enormously from person to person. For some, it is family, the joy of watching grandchildren grow and the satisfaction of contributing to their lives. For others, it is creative work, the continuation of projects and passions that have always mattered. For others, it is service, the knowledge that they are making a difference in their communities. For others, it is spiritual or religious practice, the sense of connection to something larger than themselves. The key observation from the research is not that any particular source of meaning is best. It is that having some source of meaning, some reason to engage with life, is consistently associated with better outcomes. This suggests that as people age, maintaining or even deepening a sense of purpose may be as important as any physical practice. For those considering this aspect of healthy aging, the question is not what should give my life meaning. It is what does give my life meaning. What activities make you lose track of time? What relationships matter most? What contributions do you want to make? The answers to these questions point toward the purposes that are already present, waiting to be acknowledged and cultivated. The environmental dimension. What we breathe, drink, and absorb. Human beings are not separate from their environment. We are in constant exchange with the world around us, breathing its air, drinking its water, eating foods grown in its soil. The quality of that environment therefore affects the quality of our health. This is not a new observation. Traditional systems of medicine have always paid attention to the conditions in which people live. But modern research has added specificity to our understanding of how environmental factors influence health. We now know that the air we breathe contains particles that can enter the bloodstream and affect cardiovascular function. We know that water can contain compounds that influence health. We know that the products we use on our skin and in our homes can be absorbed into the body. The relevance of this to aging is that environmental exposures accumulate over time. The body has sophisticated systems for processing and eliminating substances that enter from the environment, primarily the liver and kidneys, along with the digestive and respiratory systems. But these systems can be overwhelmed when exposures are high or when the body's detoxification capacity is compromised by nutrient deficiencies or other factors. What this suggests is not that we should fear the environment or try to live in a bubble. That is neither possible nor desirable. It suggests rather that being mindful of environmental factors, making choices that reduce unnecessary exposures, and supporting the body's natural elimination systems may be part of a comprehensive approach to healthy aging. Simple strategies include ensuring good ventilation in living spaces, using water filters if water quality is a concern, choosing personal care products with fewer synthetic ingredients, and eating foods that are less likely to contain pesticide residues when possible. More fundamentally, supporting the liver and kidneys through adequate hydration. through consumption of foods that provide the nutrients these organs need, and through avoiding excessive alcohol and unnecessary medications. Helps maintain the body's capacity to handle environmental inputs. The integration. How these principles work together. Having explored these various dimensions of healthy aging, movement, nutrition, digestive health, inflammation, nervous system balance, social connection, purpose, and environment, it is worth considering how they fit together. They are not separate tracks, each requiring its own dedicated effort. They are interwoven aspects of a single life, each influencing the others. Consider how this might look in practice. A person who maintains regular physical activity is supporting cardiovascular health, preserving muscle and bone, and sending signals that help regulate inflammation. That same person may find that physical activity provides an opportunity for social connection if done with others, and may experience the mood-elevating effects that movement can provide. The activity may be more sustainable and enjoyable if it is connected to a sense of purpose, if it serves some goal beyond abstract health. Similarly, a person who eats a varied diet rich in plant foods is providing the nutrients that support every system in the body. That same diet supports the microbiome, which in turn influences immune function and inflammation. The preparation and sharing of food can be a source of connection and meaning. The quality of food choices may be influenced by awareness of environmental factors. A person who cultivates nervous system balance through practices that promote calm may find that they sleep better, digest food more effectively, and respond to challenges with greater resilience. That same calm may make social interactions more pleasant and may support clearer thinking about life's purposes. What emerges is not a checklist of things to do, but a way of living that supports health across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The principles are not burdens to be managed, but invitations to a different relationship with daily life. One in which the choices we make are recognized for what they are. Signals to our bodies about what is expected, what resources are available, what kind of life we want to live. The long view. Aging as development. There is a tendency in modern culture to view aging primarily as decline, a process of loss and deterioration that must be fought at every turn. This perspective is understandable given the real challenges that can accompany later life. But it is also incomplete. It misses what many traditional cultures have understood, that aging is also a developmental stage, with its own unique opportunities and gifts. The developmental tasks of later life are different from those of youth or middle age. They may include integrating the experiences of a lifetime, finding meaning in what has been lived, letting go of old roles and identities that no longer fit, and turning attention toward what matters most. They may include mentoring and passing on wisdom to younger generations. They may include deepening spiritual practice and exploring questions of ultimate meaning. This developmental perspective does not deny the physical realities of aging. Bodies change. Capacities shift. Losses accumulate. But it places these realities in a larger context, one in which growing older is not merely a problem to be solved, but a journey to be undertaken, with all the complexity and richness that journey entails. The research on healthy aging, when viewed through this lens, becomes something more than a collection of tips for avoiding disease. It becomes a guide for creating the conditions in which this developmental stage can unfold most fully. Physical health matters not as an end in itself, but because it provides the foundation for continued engagement, continued contribution, continued growth. Relationships matter because they are the context in which meaning is created and shared. Purpose matters because it orients us towards something beyond ourselves, something that gives shape and direction to our days. A calm conclusion. The evidence gathered from studies of long-lived populations, from research on the biology of aging, and from observations of how bodies and minds change over time points toward a consistent set of principles. These principles are not secrets. They are not new discoveries. They are simply the accumulated wisdom of what supports human flourishing across the lifespan. Stay in motion. Keep the body challenged with varied activity that maintains strength, balance, and cardiovascular function. Provide the body with the raw materials it needs by eating a varied diet rich in whole foods. Paying attention to the nutrients that appear most frequently in research on aging. Support the digestive system and the microbial community that lives within it. Pay attention to the balance between activity and rest, between engagement and recovery, allowing the nervous system to shift between states as conditions require. Cultivate connections with others, investing time and energy in relationships that matter. Find and maintain a sense of purpose, a reason to engage with each new day. Be mindful of the environment, making choices that reduce unnecessary exposures and supporting the body's natural elimination systems. And hold all of this within a perspective that recognizes aging as a natural process, a developmental stage with its own meaning and opportunities. There is no guarantee in any of this. Bodies are complex and mysterious, and the course of any individual life is shaped by factors beyond control. But the evidence suggests that these principles create the conditions in which healthy aging is more likely, in which the later years are more likely to be marked by vitality and engagement rather than by decline and limitation. The art of growing older, like any art, is never perfectly mastered. It is a practice, something we work at day by day, learning as we go, adjusting to changing circumstances, finding our way forward with whatever resources we have. The research provides guidance, but it cannot provide certainty. What it offers instead is something perhaps more valuable, a direction, a set of principles to return to when we lose our way, a reminder that how we live matters, not only for how long we live, but for what those years contain. If there is a single thread that runs through all of this, it is that the body is not an enemy to be conquered, but a landscape to be understood. It responds to consistency more than intensity, to patience more than perfection, to the quiet accumulation of small, wise choices repeated over many years. The later years of life are not merely a waiting room. They are a season with their own depth, their own texture, their own unique kind of strength. If this reflection has stirred something in you, if it has prompted a thought about your own journey, we would be honored to hear it in the comments. And if you would like to continue exploring this archive of ideas, we invite you to look through other films in this library and to subscribe so that new wisdom finds its way to you when it is ready. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.